This morning the Minister's going to share some of her thoughts and insights about digital evolution and just what challenges this presents to us as information and technology professionals who enable services for citizens. I had the chance to ask the Minister what she wanted to do when she was 10, and here's what she shared with me. At 5, she wanted to be a nun, but decided even at age 5 she was too irreverent and sceptical to be a nun. At 10, like me, she wanted to be a vet, but wasn't really scientific enough. And at 18, wanted to be an anthropologist, but had discovered that her degree probably just wasn't going to be academic enough. So instead, Claire became a journalist so that she could ask all those tricky questions. Little did she know, some years later, she would be a Member of Parliament trying to answer all those tricky questions. So please join me in welcoming Minister Curran to Govis.
Kia ora koutou, everybody. 18 years ago, actually, at this very moment, I was in labour. Yes, well, we won't go into how long that went on for, but I had twins, actually. So that's pretty exciting that the Prime Minister's actually gone into labour on the same day that I did, just a few hours before me. So anyway, we all wish her well, I'm sure. Thanks so much for the invitation to open your conference, which is in its 10th year. And this is a significant year for me as well, because it's 10 years, it marks a decade since I became an MP, an accidental MP, I describe it. I never actually meant to be an MP, but I just found myself in a situation where I was pushed to put my name forward, and the rest is history. Technology. I was never actually into technology that much either, but I was into communications, and of course behind technology is really often about how to communicate in some way better. It's a huge driver of change, and you know, you think in the last decade just how quickly things are changing and are changing as we go forward. So there's lots of issues to talk about. How should we evolve digitally? How can we adapt and grow quickly? What does this change mean, or what do the changes mean for our people and our government? And how do we prepare today's workforce for tomorrow's jobs? We have said that we want to be a government that does things differently. And one of the things I thought I'd just touch on this morning is that we want to place people's well-being at the heart of what we do, and we want to be able to measure, so this isn't just a fluffy concept, we want to be able to measure how our policies and investments are making actual improvements in people's lives. So in my space, I've got two big goals initially: closing what I describe as the digital divides as quickly as possible, and making ICT or tech the second largest contributor to GDP by 2025. I think we can do better than that, but we have to really focus to be able to do it. But the real measure of our achievement as a country must include social success, and we shouldn't be judged only on GDP. Before that, we became the government in October last year. I was involved in opposition in a 2-year project called the Future of Work Commission. I don't know if people have heard of that. Has anyone heard of that? Stick up your hands if you have. Oh yeah, good. Hope you've all read it. It's a bit out of date now. It was about supporting the transition from old business models to new ones, teaching our children to think creatively and confidently, providing health services that keep people well, and ensuring people have the skills needed for tomorrow's workforce. Those are 4 things that I'm pulling out today, but it was about a lot more than that. How do we secure income for people who are transitioning from a legacy model to a new model without the skills? How do we ensure that they can get those skills and still remain able to survive? Digital disruption is moving at such a pace that the initial Future of Work report is now out of date, which is why the Prime Minister recently announced the establishment of a tripartite Future Work Forum. The Minister of Finance, Grant Robertson, will lead that work with Business New Zealand CEO Kirk Hope and the CTU President Richard Wagstaff. And that forum will examine key challenges facing the economy, including technological change, and help us shape the policies we need so that workers and businesses can be equipped to adapt to the rapidly changing nature of work. We know that that challenge is coming and we need to be ready to work together. It's not just about looking outward into the private sector, but it's about digital transformation across government, because there's a lot of disruption occurring across government as well. And I've actually just been talking to the CEO of a large international, the New Zealand-based CEO of a large international organisation about this very matter. His main concern, and he has something like, I can't remember how many it was, but it's about 250 service desk people that he believes in the next few years will probably drop to about 50. Now that's just one industry, one company within an industry, and his main concern is for people who are in their 40s and 50s who are likely to be the most affected, because their ability to retrain and to rethink the new jobs that they can then be training for to try and get access to. This is real, people, real, and we're going to be seeing more of it, and we have to be better prepared. So, priorities for me. This government wants all New Zealanders to embrace digital opportunities in an inclusive way. We want people to be able to more easily access government services. We want all New Zealanders to thrive in a digital world. We need to be innovative and look at how we can make our services more effective and more accessible. Every New Zealander needs to be on that journey with us, know how to access and use digital technology, trust the systems that we have to manage and protect our information. Digital is where the growth is, and we have to get it right. Last year, the Fletcher School at Tufts University in Boston released its Digital Evolution Index. It identified New Zealand as a digital elite country with high levels of digital development and a fast rate of digital evolution. New Zealand, along with Singapore and the United Arab Emirates, are considered to be standout nations. We've got, apparently, unique policy-led strategies that the Fletcher School thinks are worth copying. There's no denying that we are doing well in some areas, but there's so much more that we can do, and we can't afford to wait. As a small country, we're early adopters of technology. We can develop, test and innovate quicker than most. And an example of that is the government's marketplace, which is an open market platform currently being tested and developed that could potentially transform the business of government and help grow the New Zealand ICT sector. Right now, we're showcasing our physical distance from the rest of the world as a plus to attract resources and technology. And we've got strong links to international markets, a comprehensive free trade agreement network in the Asia-Pacific region, and world-class fast internet speeds. We've also got a time zone advantage, all reasons to invest in New Zealand's digital evolution. But we can't be complacent. We can't think that she'll be right. We can't sit on our hands in this space. To stay ahead, we've got to keep innovating, and we have to provide the support structures around that innovation to allow it to grow as quickly as possible. How open and supportive that we are to innovation will help determine our future growth potential, and government plays a key role in creating the right conditions. Good policies that analyse risk, also recognise that risk is important, and identify opportunity are vital to our digital future, which is why, as I mentioned earlier, we need better measures of success that focus on outcomes for people and the delivery of public good. Meaningful change is only going to be possible by working together, and I'll only say it once more, we can't afford to wait. So priorities. Digital inclusion is a priority for me. We believe that New Zealanders must have access to technology, regardless of income or geography, and the skills to take the opportunities it presents. The groups that are most at risk from digital exclusion, I describe this as a new measure of poverty, digital poverty, include families with children living in low socio-economic communities, people living in rural communities, people with disabilities, older people, and Māori and Pacifica youth. An example of this is a boy, 15-year-old actually, who just recently wrote to me. His parents are divorced. He just lives just outside Nelson. And he spends time with both parents. But lately though, he's been forced essentially to spend more time with one parent because there's no internet or not good enough internet at the other parent's house, and it's actually not the choice that he would like to make, and that's what he wanted to communicate to me and actually to the Prime Minister, because he wrote to her too. He needs the internet to do his homework. His older sister has also been affected by this, doing her NCEA, and it was a poignant email, and it really went into quite a lot of detail, but it really brought home just the impact that this is having out there if you don't have access, and how you're being disadvantaged and choices that you're having to make. We don't want that to happen. We want to fix that. With ultra-fast broadband, and absolutely support the work done by the previous government in. We didn't always agree on the mechanisms, but on the objective of delivering ultra-fast broadband to as many people in New Zealand as possible. It'll be available to 87% of Kiwi households and businesses by the end of 2022. But the challenge remains how to get more people to use the technology. The second phase of RBI, the rural broadband, is underway now, and that's going to provide new or improved broadband services to around 70,000 additional rural households by the end of 2021, and it'll include the Mobile Black Spot Fund, which means people will be able to have cellular connectivity. And then on top of that, there's another expansion of the RBI2, which is currently being allocated at the moment, which will take it out even further. So the aim is that by 2021, 2022, hopefully, we will have as few as around 4,000 households in New Zealand that don't have access to any of those programs. And I want to solve that as well. We're committed to universal access to technology, all of us, not just most of us. And it's not just about being able to connect, it's being able to use, being able to afford it. So those are the next steps to make sure that we're getting that right. I'll say a couple of comments about the process we're underway to appoint a new Chief Technology Officer, because they will have a vital role to play. can't say too much about it. I haven't got an announcement yet. It's in train, and interviews will be happening very soon. Our technology future is complex. It impacts the lives of all New Zealanders. The CTO is basically a mechanism to take us up, to elevate this area of our lives, to focus all our attention on it, and to help create a truly New Zealand plan outside and inside and across government, and what that intersection between government and outside government looks like. Because to consider the implications of technological change across a lot of policy areas, and not just the implications but the opportunities, so that we can tackle future challenges. And I'm expecting that CTO to provide independent and expert advice from a whole of society perspective, not just a government or a technologist perspective. That person will play a lead role in developing the digital strategy for New Zealand and have a broad mandate to serve as a challenge to and advisor for the New Zealand government. It's a position that will report to me and to the Prime Minister. So there will be a decision soon. I've also established a digital economy and digital inclusion group which will provide support and advice to the CTO. But what they've been doing is they've been working on advice for the government on how we can build the digital economy and reduce the digital divides. They are working on a blueprint for digital inclusion. That blueprint is about a future state, which helps define where we're heading and how we might get there. And I've asked that group to really work its networks as much as possible. I see those 15 people as being my way to try and connect with a much, much wider group of people. If you've got connections with any of the people on that group, please utilise them to push your ideas. That's what they're there for, even if they are tearing their hair out at the number of people who are at them. But that is why they got appointed, and because I had more than 300 people apply. I couldn't make an advisory group of 300 people, so I've tried to do that by using those people as the conduit to build much greater networks outwards to government. We also, I want to say a few comments about digital rights. We need to think about having the right framework so that our communities can enjoy the benefits of a digital world while also minimising risk. The power of data can make a positive difference to New Zealanders, but there are challenges as well, which is why we're now investigating how government agencies use algorithms so that we can assure New Zealanders that their data is being used appropriately. This is really, really important. I released a report on artificial intelligence shaping the future a few weeks ago, and one of the key recommendations in that was that there be a plan, or there is no plan for artificial intelligence in New Zealand, but also that there is no ethical framework for the use of algorithms in New Zealand. So myself and James Shaw, the Minister of Statistics, announced an audit of algorithmic use across government, which is now being undertaken. Hopefully your agency, for all the public servants in the room, you has been approached. I think that we need to look under our own hood to see what we're doing. And this is critical work to build trust and confidence from the public in how government's using its data. We're also working internationally within the Digital 7 nations. That's the D7 group that New Zealand's a part of, the UK, South Korea, Israel, Estonia, Canada, and Uruguay. It's a very eclectic group of nations, but all working really cooperatively together on a range of projects. And we are leading a project on digital rights at the moment, because this is actually one of the key issues across the world, with governments grappling with how to ensure that the rights that people have in the physical world can be manifested in the digital environment. And this again goes to trust and confidence, so that in order to move ahead with digital transformation across government, we see as fundamental to that, but get the buy-in from our populations, is to build that trust and confidence in how we are using data, and that we can also show leadership to the rest of the country and the private sector. So I'm going to make a special announcement today, which apparently some of you might think is quite good. And I'm struggling to understand what it actually means. But that the government has fast-tracked the development of the all-of-government digital service design standard.
Excellent.
Oh, great. The new standard is a significant step towards meeting our D7 commitments as a leading digital nation. It's a template for agencies to design, develop and implement digital services and drive system-wide benefits. This standard will shape design thinking and put the citizen at the centre of trusted public services to New Zealand. And again, this goes to the desire to ensure that New Zealanders can use the services of government agencies with confidence. This design standard is a critical part of providing that assurance. As I've said numerous times, the digital world is here. It's here with every app we use and every time we look online for goods. So whenever New Zealanders go to engage with one of our agencies, we owe it to them to make the service accessible and inclusive. We now have a living design standard, a 21st century online model where content is iterated, improved and responsive. So, in the coming weeks, I'll be engaging with more communities to discuss and consult on the digital inclusion blueprint being developed by the DDI group, as I'm calling the advisory group. I want to hear views and experiences and understand what the New Zealand public expects in our digital dealings with them. The government is ensuring that core issues like digital divides, inclusion, rights and privacy are on the cabinet table. No Kiwi will be left behind. So, in order to thrive in the digital world, we need to take a collective approach and bring together the skills and talents of our innovative thinkers and leaders, community organisations and New Zealanders to define what the future looks like. I challenge you, as leaders from the public and private sector, to think broadly about how we can sustain New Zealand's status as a digitally elite country. Does that sound too poncy? Digitally advanced country. How can we ensure that everyone benefits from the opportunities presented by digital evolution? How do we adapt, collaborate and innovate and ensure that everyone benefits from digital? We need to do this together because if it's actually going to work, it's going to take all of us to build an inclusive, transparent and prosperous digital nation. Kia ora koutou.
Thank you so much for that, and that challenge at the end about how do we maintain that status, I think as a public servant to take to heart, and there's a great challenge in there. I really thank you for that. Thank you for your thoughts. Thank you.